Welcome to another episode of the Hospitality Mentor Podcast. Today, I've been excited for this one. We've got Winston Smith, the general manager of the Standard Spa, Miami Beach. Winston, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Steve. It's been a
Well,
pleasure. I've been
Winston,
waiting for this for a while.
I know, me too. We had to reschedule a couple
Yeah,
times.
yep,
I
yep.
had to convince you a little bit, but now you're here. I'm excited that you're here. And Winston, we always start every episode the same way. What was your first job in hospitality?
First job in hospitality. Well, for me, it was accounts payables. Uh, start counting the beans right then and there from the beginning. Uh, I didn't have a vision to be in hospitality, but I lucked into it, and I was grateful for being in here. But accounts payables for me was I was doing all the mundane work, the filing, uh, paying all the bills for Downtown Standard. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Downtown Standard, but that was one of the first properties I ever worked for this in this industry. I've been with the hotel for about 19 years, almost 20 years, and that's when I started just going to town on accounts payables.
I was gonna say, it's amazing that you've been with this company for 20 years and starting in finance. So for listeners, we're gonna get into this, but you don't see many people become general manager that come through finance. I'm excited about this journey. And you kind of touched on it where you said, you weren't really looking to get into hospitality. So how did you find this first job? Did it just like come up and you're like, oh, I need a job? Or was it during college? Because I know you were doing
Yeah,
accounting, business law. Like, how did that come together?
I well, I when I moved from Belize because I'm originally from Belize, Los Angeles. I got married and I decided that I was going to have my wife at the time finish her school, and I decided to go to work. And I went to a temp agency, and that temp agency put me and introduced me to the standard downtown. I applied as an accountant, right? And that was one of the things. I didn't realize it was going to be an accountant at a hotel. And I never heard of accountants being in hotels. I didn't know anything about hotels. So as I got into there and I start realizing that there were so many structures within the hotel with accounting that it piqued my interest, and I was able to develop in quite a rapid amount of time, learning from some of the best director of finance and managers within that industry. And I got promoted from there, from accounts payables from Downtown Standard to work at Hollywood Standard, which is another icon. Fortunately, they're both closed, but another icon nonetheless. And doing general cashiering and income audit. And that's what I enjoy doing for the most part. And that's where where I kind of sort of built everything, you know?
No, and you get to see so many different things, right? In accounting, you have a picture of everything that's happening in the
Yeah.
hotel.
Yeah.
And so what was it like for you? Like, maybe you can give us like the day to day because, I came through food and beverage. So
Okay.
I would butt heads all the time with people in finance because I didn't really follow exactly what they wanted me to. But what was your day like when you were doing that role?
Day to day, if I'm looking at an accounts payables standpoint, basically just answering a lot of phone calls about vendors. Now, if your business is successful, then it's easier explaining that a check is in the mail and it's on its way. If it's not as much and you're borrowing money from here to here, then you got to come up with when's the next check going to come out there, and those are the things you see, right? Um, Also, building relationship with vendors was key things right there. Accounts receivable, obviously, that's the other end of it, where you're collecting money from other
Mhm.
companies, right? You're the one like the collection agency, you know. Mm, That was interesting as well, being on both sides of the world. You,
Yeah,
you,
so it's
Mhm.
tough. It's
Yeah.
tough because I've been a vendor and I'm a vendor again. And so sometimes I'm waiting for checks and you can get aggressive with people when you're owed money. How did you handle that? Especially when you need those vendors a lot of the time.
Well, it's again, nurturing your relationship with them so they can have understanding that next time their check is coming first. Luckily, for the most part, our property was successful, so we didn't have to deal with a whole lot of that. I think when you're dealing with hotels that are seasonal hotels, you find them dealing with more of that tactic that they have to be introduced with, right?
Mhm.
But those other properties, they made great money, as this one currently here. Finding yourself borrowing money from the owners and so on and so forth. So that's kind of sort of how it goes. As a general cashier, that was more dealing and auditing and counting server banks and making sure they're making the right deposit. And if they didn't drop enough money, what would be the repercussions from that? Like not exciting. It's not an exciting work for everyone, and it's not made for everyone. But I found it like, enjoyable at the time, and just working your way up from there to paymaster, and that was another one that was a
Yeah.
cheap.
So tell me about that, because that also was when you moved hotels, right? Didn't you move
Yeah,
when you became paymaster? So you were
yeah.
working in California and then you
So
move to
that
Miami
part,
Beach. How did that happen?
that part of journey of my life was, I think that's where it was more impactful in the sense that my mom had cancer at the time, and she was passing away. And
Mhm.
she told me, I went to visit her one day, and I had a previous boss from Miami that had offered me this position. And I went to her and said, "Hey, look, I got this position." And at this point in time, she was like going through hospice, and she said, "Hey, look, I think you should take it. And whatever I told you in life not to do, please make sure you do it. Don't let me or anyone hold you back from doing it." So, as upset or saddening as that might have been, I just packed up my stuff, packed up a U-Haul. I drove cross country about Thanksgiving time, sometime this time in 2025.
Wow.
And I drove across with my little brother-in-law at the time. And we did it in about 2 days. And that was pretty interesting. And that was, it was impactful and fearful at the same time because I didn't have anyone here. I didn't know anyone here. I didn't have any friends here, family or anything. And that was kind of the scariest thing that I've ever done in my life, to go somewhere and start new and knowing that your lifeline was not going to be there for you anymore. And I did that. And I think I found fear at that point in time to be my comfort. And that journey from there took off. And I stepped foot. I remember the day I came here was at nighttime, and I was taken back because just looking outside the standard property, especially back then, the roads weren't paved as it was before. So
Mhm.
it was like dirt road and all these things. And I'm looking like, whoa, like what did I do? Did I make the right decision? Because it didn't say the standard on it, it had that big Lido sign on there. And I was like, where is this hotel? What is this? And I was used to the glamour of Hollywood, the up nightlife of standard downtown, and to come from that and working both those properties at the same time, commuting those long distance, it was like, what did I do? And I thought I made the wrong decision at that point, but as soon as I stepped through the door and I saw what it was like, and I stepped through the other door to see the garden area, I was like, wow, this is beautiful. I felt grounded, and that was where I was with that, just feeling that groundedness and knowing that the lifestyle of this property does not compare to any of the other standard, right? Just the way they're focused, or this property is now focused more so on health and wellness, and those weren't. This is where I found myself, and this is why I can say being here, specifically this one, for so many years captivated me. And as long as I've been here, seeing all the different GMs and seeing all the different directors of finances and so on and so forth, it always felt like I was at somewhere else, somewhere new, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, just working those environments, it made me grateful for this one, knowing that I don't have to do a 6 hour commute or a 4 hour commute and get stuck in traffic jam in LA or
Yep.
California, right? So it was eye opening. It was
That's an
really nice.
amazing story. Like, you had so much going on, and you come how old were you when that was going on?
About 27.
So 27, big life change. You get here to a place that you've never lived.
Hmm.
Did the hotel support you right when you got there, or was it like,
Oh
"Oh,
yeah.
man, I gotta learn a bunch of things going on?" Because
No,
sometimes the new guy comes in, it's like, "Oh, we're gonna give this guy a little bit of a hard time," in some places, or they embrace you and,
they,
welcome.
they were welcoming. Again, property was new, so I opened it, and I was the one training other employees for the most part. And I had a extensive amount of IT background because of downtown in Hollywood that they didn't have IT like we do here now. And this up there, we have contract laborers, right? It was all hands on deck. So if the accounting system went down, you're the one dealing with it. If the front desk operation system went down, you're dealing with that. Or F&B, you're dealing with that hands on. You're talking directly to the IT from those companies. So I learned quite a lot from there. And I use those that knowledge to come here and then implement those same things. So whether I was setting up the system from scratch from the back end, that's everything that I did. And again, being grateful for just how everyone here was, and it was peaceful. Everyone seemed more peaceful, and you had time for yourself. You know,
Yeah,
when you're in that type of industry and some of those industries that you're just commuting, going back, working 8 hours, you really don't have time for yourself. You get home by the time you're sleeping, you go, you sleep, and you come back. It's just you're in a little hamster wheel, and this kind of made you jump off a little, and you were like, for a lot. But you have time to go to the beach, you have time for your family. And those are the things that I appreciate a lot. That This
that's true.
actually helped.
So what was it like when you were there? So for you were doing paymaster for 11 years, income auditor with that as well. What was the hotel like? Because selfishly, I was working on the beach, and I don't remember the standard at that time. Like I'd been there, but I don't remember what it was like. Was it full of energy? Was it more
Yeah.
relaxing? Was the neighborhood? What was it like at those early days?
I think back then, and this is what I'm trying to get at now. Back then, I think it was more geared towards a lot of health, a lot of wellness. So you had a big yoga following. She wanted to do kickboxing. They had a good following there. Budokan that developed off of here. There was actually Donate and that company that actually is now in design district, and that actually stemmed from here. That following was just out of the standard, right? So still, nonetheless, you had your employees still participating in all that, and this was one of the first hotels that I've known of that you get to participate in everything, whether it's going to the gym, once in a while going to the pool, enjoying the steamer room, hammam. You don't normally get that where you're actually telling your employees, like, you know what, we appreciate all the get work that we're doing for the guests as health and wellness, but we are also going to do this for you. And that was very, very impactful that you get to do all these things for free. And it was like, you develop that, right? You get to appreciate where
Yeah.
you are.
I remember when you told me that for the first time. So listeners, we were having coffee at the beautiful Standard coffee shop there, and Winston told me that the team is allowed to use the amenities. I was like, it blew my mind. Like as a manager at some of the hotels, we could like use the gym, and then we had to like go early morning or like late night and like hide. But they encourage it there, and their turnover is very low. So was that something that you would use a lot? Do people use it a lot when they're there, or is
Yeah,
it?
they do. Obviously, respectfully being mindful of our guests because they're the one that's paying for it, and they do. They appreciate and they use it a lot, right? Um, I One of the things coming up from getting into the GM role, we did this thing with the HR where it's called fishing for ideas, right? And we reached out to the employees because as I was once an hourly employee and you were one too, we had all these ideas that we wanted to introduce, and your voice is unheard. You go unheard. And we said, well, let's do something called Fishing for Ideas where everybody just um, put into this little paper that's shaped like a little fish thing on the net in the cafeteria and just anonymously put, hey, these are the things we want to see in our areas. How can we improve our areas? What can we do to build morale? And we did that, and we saw us building morale quite significantly. And again, changing the way that we do things and changing the way we see hospitality, not just from the guest perspective, but it's very important to see it from an employee perspective, right? From the other human side of it, you know, this is our focus and our goal.
Yeah, I love that. And so, listen, we're gonna get back to that, what you're doing now as a GM, but I wanna go back to the journey. So
Uh-huh.
you get to Miami Beach from, I think in my notes here say 2005 to like 2016. You're in the thick of accounting, like you're in
Yeah.
the mix,
Uh-huh.
right? And that's a long time to be in a role. And I see that a lot. Like a lot of people, hey, this is what I want to be. I'm keeping this role. But then you start to move up. How does that happen? Do you start to say after that time, like to the people around, like, I want to move up? Is that what you always had in mind? Did someone push you? How does that start to take shape when you start making these levels up to chief accountant and then director of finance?
I would say a little bit both. Again, as much courage as you have moving across country, there's still a little bit of doubt that you do give to yourself from time to time. That you need those right mentors or employees or coworkers next to your side just to say, "Hey, look, you can do this. You got this. You've seen so many people do this. You've been doing it when they're not here. So go ahead and step up." I think I've stepped up to the plate for that for quite often, and that's how you get ahead for that. Getting the
Nice.
right mentor, and I've had a lot of director of finance that were CPAs and achieving that goal, and I've learned from them just memorizing everything that they do and just really soaking it in. And this is what it took.
Yeah, and so when you start getting there, right, I wanna kinda skip. So you get to chief accountant, you're doing that for, like, a year and a half,
Mhm,
then you get to director of finance. So this role, to me, I've learned it now.
mhm.
It's when I work with the directors of finance that are good, you can see, like,
Yeah.
they understand the business, they help, we grow the business together. Then there's others who just kinda, like, aren't as good, and you see
Now
that struggle a little bit. So
mhm. So I think
tell
for
me, go ahead.
that role, that's where I developed my leadership skills a lot, right? And that's where you really have no control over the hotel in a sense of controlling the finance, the expense side, uh, whether somebody or the team gets an increase or not. Um, and how do you make them get an increase, and whether or not you're driving or pushing revenue, and how do you drive and push revenue? And as much control as you have from there, there's still somebody above you really controlling everything, right? So
Mhm.
you're more of a guidance for the GMs to say, well, hey, look, this is what I think you should do. Now, you don't have to listen to me, but I think if we want to be successful, you should do this, right? And that's where I was very hands on. So you're going to see me down there every morning, auditing, walking around, looking to make sure the place is clean and clear. Like I was not like other director of finance. Most directors of finance, for the most part, you see them just sitting in the office, sitting in front of their computers, and so on. While I did do that, I made sure that I dedicated most of my time to do to walk around on the grounds, get to know the employees from that perspective. That's when you find out other stuff too, right? Because you think everything is perfect, but then an employee will always tell you like, "Oh, did you know that this is happening?" You're like, "No, I did not know that, but thank you for letting me know." So really getting down and dirty and show them that you're still up as much as you're in the office with your nice jacket or a nice whatever, you're still down there with them in on the grounds, right? So that's
Mhm.
the little direction there for me from director of finance, which was that I learned a lot from. There you're learning your rooms of spa, the F&B, and all the different outlets. The little town, what a resort is, like, it's a little town itself.
It's
So,
true.
you
And
control.
so when
Mhm,
you got to that role, so a lot of people strive, they wanna become a director of finance or a regional director, right,
mhm.
of finance. So you get to that role. Was it shocking when you finally sat down in that office or that chair? Like, "Man, like, I've been here since 2005 and now I'm the director of finance." What did that feel like that first day? Do you remember it?
Yeah, it was exhilarating, so, all your friends are like, "Oh my god, thank you so much. You have a lot of" and we've had a lot of teammates here for years, just as long as I have, and they were excited for me to achieve, or get that role. And we were able to accomplish a lot just in that role, just sitting down and making sure that everything is just when we get audited, that everything is on point. And what I'm excited about is when we do get audited, and every year we get an audit, that they already know me for the most part, and they come in and they're like, "Oh, I already know everything is going to be good, right?" So that's
Yep.
exciting to see that they know that everything already we have it in a certain order, and you're able to control that order. And kind of sort of that's what it is, right? You get to control how your finance gets. And
Yeah.
I love that. I love that feeling, making sure everything is near perfect.
And
Yeah.
so what was it like once you got to that level? Because I remember my first day in that executive role. Was it a big learning experience for you? Like, or you had been doing it for so long? Like you said, you've been doing the job, but it's
Yeah.
different once you're the final
Mhm.
person. Was
Yeah.
it a change in mindset or were you already ready for it?
I was that role I was ready for. That was definitely a role I was ready for. I think the role that was a little bit change in mindset would have been the GM role
So I want to
because
get to that. Yeah,
yeah,
I want to keep that for there. That's what I want to talk
yeah.
about. So you're doing director of finance. You're at the one of the best hotels in the city, if not the country. You got millions and millions of dollars that you get to learn from and see.
Mhm.
The director of finance, and for the listeners here that don't know your numbers, what would you tell people? Like, how can you understand the story of a hotel through learning the P&L and the statements? And what would you tell people? Because a lot of people don't know it when you talk to them.
Oh, well, it's obviously it's very important to know your revenue and your expenses. You can make $1,000,000, but if your expenses are equivalent to that, then what's the point of doing that, right? You'd be
Yeah.
better off making $50,000 and thus your expenses are 20,000 and thus with a 30,000 uh, profit, right? So again, I would say really make sure that you have the right procedures in place. Stay up to date with all your salaries, the 11th edition. That's something that most accountants for most hospitality focus on. That those are things to focus to hold there too, and making sure that you're getting audits. And we have an internal audit, so we have a company to do our own audit, and that's how much like we're confident that we hire somebody else outside to come in here to audit us. And
Hmm.
if you have nothing to hide, and you will always be true and ethical for yourself, no matter what the whether whoever is above you, always stay true and always stay ethical. That's one thing that I learned from business law was you're going to have people sometimes coming your way with different things. Just stay true to yourself. Just be ethical because everything comes back, right? So those are key things there from a financial standpoint with the P&L. I don't know. It's just a lot of
Yeah.
detail to go through,
Yeah.
and you just have to be on it. Whether the thing is, people try to wait until the end of the month, and it's too late at the end of the month when you're looking at your finance because you can't go back, right? You got to look at your dailies, and you got to look at your labor report, and this is something you got to look on at daily because again, you can at least you can fix things that's upcoming in a day, but financial statement, as important as it is, waiting till the end of the month to really using that as leverage, too late. Can't go back a month to fix something that's happening already.
Hmm.
Keep that in mind. Your day to day is very important.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. So listeners, I prided myself on looking every single day. Like I knew the trends, I knew what was happening in all of the
Mhm.
restaurants and banquets and outlets, and I had recreation and the retail shop. Like I knew what was going on. So
Mhm.
one of the best compliments I ever got was from my director of finance at my last hotel because he was tough. He's like, Steve, you know your numbers. I give you
Yeah,
that. And I was
yeah,
like, I'll
yeah.
take it. I'll take it. Right. And so for you. Now, this is where I'm very interested, right? Because you're director of finance. And I remember I worked with director of finances that would give me suggestions all the time, like you said, and I would give the GM suggestions all the time. Um, how did you then start to make this transition to general manager? Because I haven't seen this happen
Well,
before, and all the people we've talked to. How did this happen for you?
well, again, I was already hands on with doing things that the general manager would do. So again, going downstairs, making sure the restaurant is working properly, the behind the scene of the kitchen, auditing, inventory control, really already mingling with guests and so on and so forth. So for me, that transition was basically just once the previous GM left, we started doing this thing where we participated. All the exec team did something called interim GM. So we would spend 2 weeks, each of us, and 1 week at a time to say, hey, well, your turn is going to be for interim GM. You be an interim GM, and we saw how that went, and it was successful, and we were able to be successful even without the previous GM, as great as that GM was. And the position was offered to me, and I decided not to take it at the time. And they hired another GM. That was short lived. And I said, and at that point in time, I had said, hey, look, if I didn't get it around this time, when the other GM leaves, I'll take it. And again, that was short lived, and I was able to take that GM role and
Yep.
just fell into it. And again, just not having coming into a GM position is not having an ego, but understand that it's a team sport and you're not just by yourself and you're with your executive committee, which is pretty much basically everyone from each department head. And you're listening to them and they're listening to you and you share ideas. If you had an idea, you present it to that executive committee and we vote as a team and we do everything as a team and to be successful. And it's not my department, your department. It's all cohesive. And this is how well we're able to control and do things. You know?
Love that. I want to rewind a little further back because you mentioned like you turned it down the first time.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people would be like, Why, Winston? Why did you do that? What happened? Was it just like you didn't feel ready, or you thought, I'm not
Yeah.
really
I didn't
up
feel ready
for it?"
as, yeah, sorry. I didn't feel ready because we had just took on this new company from Nomadi and we were still building the accounting system from scratch. and I didn't want to leave my counterpart high and dry. And I knew if I got this role that it would not give me time to train somebody else and like for the director of finance position or that counterpart, right? So I wanted to make sure all the systems was in place before I can make that next lateral movement, if you call it that way. And we were able to do that. Like again, everything was from scratch, and building a system from scratch is not easy, whether it's a payroll system, accounting system, every system that was there from scratch, we did it. And that takes a long process and a long time, but we were able to achieve it. And as soon as I did that, I said, hey, look, okay, I'm good. I'm in a comfortable spot. And the timing was perfect when the other person left, and we did that change. And it was change for good. Cause then again, you never know who the next person you're gonna get. And they're successful if they're not, if they're good, if they're mean. You said that you had one person that was very strict and mean with you and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
Everybody leads in a different way. And not everybody lead with the same vision that you have, right? And so I was like, you know what? I know what I want to do for this property. I know the vision that we had before, the vision when I first walked into this room, into the hotel. That's the vision I wanted to maintain and retain and get. Because as we went through years, we lost a little bit of something. Right? You lose a lot because you're trying to focus on let's make money, let's make money, let's make money. And you start losing the purpose and the reason why you focus on the wrong things. So it's bring that focus back. And that's what we were trying to do. And that's what we're accomplishing right now. Slowly but surely, reversing it to get into that
That's amazing.
last
And so
years.
you like you said, there's not many people. It's almost like you're like the keeper of the culture there because you were there at the opening, and I'm
Mhm.
sure you go into the hotel, there aren't as many people like that as you. Like, I
Mhm.
don't know. How many people would you count? Is like on a hand, or is it a lot of people that have
Um,
been there since you got there?
I want to say maybe it's about
Alright,
five.
so 5 of you
So,
out of hundreds that have been there. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
you get to that GM position, which I'm sure what was that feeling like? Because I'm sure when you started as paymaster there, you weren't envisioning yourself becoming GM, or did you have that in mind to say,
Oh
"I'm gonna."
no, no. I think my vision was accomplishment was director of finance. Like that was my bar. That was my sky. That's my
Nice.
limit right there. And then becoming a GM was that was different. That was an opening to change. And that's what I wanted to do. Like I wanted to be the person that changed. And I thought, okay, wait, if I become a director of finance, I can change internally from a financial side. And while I was able to do that, you can't change completely because there's always somebody above you that can that's the final call or the final decision.
Mhm.
So being the GM was the person that could do that, and I embraced that one. I embraced wholeheartedly. It is a stressful job because now you're the final decision maker on a lot of stuff, whether you're hiring or terminating, or there's all these decisions that you're making from a day to day basis. And I never really got the director of finance position out of my head in that role. And it took a while for me to like, hey, okay, there's a new director of finance. You're the one in charge. You're the one in charge. And you got to keep telling yourself, okay, stop looking at this. You're the one in charge. Let them deal with this. And even now, like I still do it. So it's very difficult doing that.
Mhm.
But to change into the culture, that's now the goal is how do you where what direction you want to take the company? And that's now the GM role, right? Where do you want to take the company being successful, obviously, making sure you make all the revenues, but what's the right way to do it? In which direction? And how do you build a team to do that? Hold that all the employees and get that morale to where you can do it, where everybody's happily doing that. And that's where we are.
Well, I didn't tell you this, but I had lunch there 2 weeks ago 'cause I was
Mhm.
with my wife and we were just driving by. We're like, "Let's go stop in for lunch." And the team was awesome. The food was excellent. I mean, you
Thank
make
you.
the weather really good for me. So,
Oh,
listeners, if you haven't looked at his hotel, make sure you check out the Standard on Miami Beach because it is my one of my favorite places on the planet just to go and enjoy a meal and have a drink. I've never been a member, and I just see people enjoying themselves. There's smiles everywhere. So you're doing something right because I know when I walk into places that are not that way and the leader is not good, you don't see people smiling. You see
mhm.
people not wanting to be there and you can feel it. All right. It's a feeling you get when you walk into those places. So wanted to congratulate you here on air so people could hear because
Thank you.
I thought it was really special. And I wanted you to know that when I dined there a couple weeks ago.
Thank
But
you.
so
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. So as GM now, this is where I want to talk about. So you have this beautiful place. And like you said, it's hard. Like I remember when I left to be a business owner, and then I came back into hotels before jumping back out again. This was I looked at everything almost like dollar signs. Like, all right, that server is using way too many napkins. This thing is the water spout's
Yeah.
running. Do you walk around the property like that with your finance
All
mind going?
all the time. All the time. I walk
Mm,
around in the morning with engineering, with my design team. I walk around with HR. I walk around with all the leaders and just go through the whole that'll never change, you know? Cleanliness for me is one of the most important things, right? So they know once I get there, everything needs to be on point. Everything needs to be clean. That's the thing. And wasting, can't be wasting, gotta be efficient. So as strict as not, I wouldn't say strict. I think I'm stern, right? And stern with the more so the managers, but not with the employees, right? Because employees are you want them to have that bubbly life, but I'm still there and they know that, oh, let's get it in order, let's get it in shape. And the idea is when you're not around, how do you make sure that the team can still run and control as though you're there, right? Respectfully. And I think that's one of the things you hold true, especially as a leader, to be always respectful of everything you do. You talk to someone else like another human being. And there's no title involved when it says. I'm sure people look up when you were younger and say, "Oh my God, I want to be a GM or I want to be a director of finance." And these are the individual, all these titles, and they can do this and get to do that. Once I got this role, in a sense, I didn't really see myself doing that. My door is always open. You'll see me talk to employees from time to time, asking about their kids, asking about how their life is, and how was the weekend, what shows they watch, and so on and so forth. And really come down and see eye to eye as a human being versus a person has a title. And once you take those away and you strip that away, you then become a family. And that's kind of sort of what you want to build because you do anything for family, right? You'll come in, you'll work and you'll be happy about it. And that's the idea too, is when I tell my team during orientation is, um, I want to be we do a lot for whether it's the owners or the company, but what can we do for you? You know? And that's how you start building, like, we want to do things for our employees. And that's getting them to see that and get not just see that, believe it, and we actually commit to it and follow through. That's kind of sure that.
no, it's true. I can see that. You don't have many job openings ever, right? Like it's very few, right? You look at your job openings versus some others, and you can tell that people enjoy being there.
Yeah.
I say, look, as a general manager now, you've got this beautiful hotel because everything is going great there. I know that there's some things coming up. What are you most excited about coming up? I don't want your 5-year plan, but like, what are you most excited about, like next year or the next year and a half? What do you think
Next
exciting?
year and a half, I think one of the things that we're going to be doing, hopefully down the road, the management company have some big ideas about construction and so on and so forth. But during that time for me is pretty much focusing on building the team, keeping their morale up and giving them something to do to put on their resume and really getting the managers involved to make sure that we actually fulfill that task. That if somebody say, "Oh, we're going to do construction," that they don't feel lost or like fearful that, "Wow, we're going to go through some construction. What's going to happen to my job?" No, they need to feel that confidence and they're like, "Oh, okay, you can go through construction because I can get a job anywhere." And to give them that self confidence that they don't have to fear. And this is something we're working hard with the team on. But everything to come. I see the designs, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you have seen the designs and the rendering. It should be something pretty interesting, and I can't wait to see when that comes to light and when we do get the employees back and the team back to where we need to be, what else we can do for our guests and hospitality. So
No,
that's
that's
going to be
amazing.
something really good there.
That's very special. I've seen the renderings, and you guys can go online and see what they're going to be building there. It's beautiful. What's coming up. And there's a lot of hotels doing renovations and
Hmm.
construction. Seems like you go up and down Miami Beach, everyone is under renovation. And so it's just part of the game. Like you have to continue to evolve and to change. And
Hmm.
so for you, do you continue to plan on evolving and changing with the standard? Because I know there's a lot been going on with standard with Hyatt buying it, and there's some other things. I don't know all the ins and outs, but it seems like there's a lot happening.
Yeah, they're still working out the logistics and all that. I see. I think by the end of first quarter, we should get a better understanding of what role we play. Just that we are different from all the other standards. In fact, that we're the only one that's a franchise,
Oh, wow.
and so that's kind of sort of where we are right now. That little waiting game to see what happens. And I think after the first quarter of next year, we'll see. Um, we still enjoy all the same benefits of being a high um, employee, right? But yeah, that's pretty much there. That's all I know for now. So
Okay.
until I
Well, that
know
way you can
more,
share with us listeners. That's what
when I
we
know
get.
more, you will know more.
Well, look, Winston, you share a lot with us here today. I love this journey of yours, of where you've come from and how you started here and just betting on yourself moving across the country and now being the GM of one of my favorite places. But if you could whisper into young Winston's ear, who was starting at the Standard downtown and he was starting today, what advice would you give young Winston?
Oh, wow. For that one, I would say don't let anyone ever convince you from achieving your goal or your vision. That's one of the things that you will have a lot of people convincing you something just because they can't see it doesn't mean it's unattainable. That's what a lot of that is what deter us from achieving a goal. You know, you'll have a lot of negative individuals in your life. I think really harnessing and keeping the right type of friends who actually want to see you grow and be successful. That is very important.
I love that. I think that's great advice for anyone coming up. Winston, I appreciate you sharing this time with us here today. You taught us a lot. I love hearing about your journey here because it is so unique. And I'm just grateful you spent this hour with us.
All right. Thank you. It's great being with you and part of this. I always your success, I'm following you along the way, and man, it just gives me tingles just to see that what you do have a purpose, and I enjoy being a part of that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for being a part of it. And for listeners, if this podcast episode brought you any benefit, make sure to share it with a friend because I'm sure they will benefit as well. Winston shared some great stories with us. And make sure to check out his amazing hotel, the Standard Spa on Miami Beach. We will see you next time.